Hey everybody, it's Charlie from DM Moto, and an interesting phenomenon has been happening since I've started the dedicated DM Moto YouTube channel here, probably about half a year ago or so, doing dedicated motorcycle and power sports reviews. Many of the commenters are insufferable. I'm going to come right out and say it. Some of the bikes that we review, the type of people that love to come into the comments and talk about, back in the 1970s, I used to be able to do this and ride, never needed something like ABS or fuel injection or the disc brakes. I was able to ride across the country drunk, had no problems except for the 3 DUIs that I got and losing my wife and kids. You know what? I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. It's 2026. People ride modern motorcycles. People want to ride for other reasons other than just feeling like you're knocking on death's doorstep every 5 minutes. But I say all that to say, this is kind of a personal rant, I'm sorry, but there's an old saying that Honda used to use for marketing: you meet the nicest people on a Honda. We also get the nicest commenters on Honda videos, because the type of people who go out and buy a CB500F are the type of people who just enjoy being out on a motorcycle. They don't need a bike that's going to rip them up to 150 miles per hour in 10 seconds. They don't need a bike that's going to try to flex and be loud and show how cool and buff and macho they are. They just want a motorcycle that is going to be easy to ride, easy to maintain, easy to purchase, and easy to live with. And that's this bike right here, the CB500F. Now, I got this motorcycle to review against Kawasaki's counterpart, the Z500, and so we have that video linked below of that comparison. Admittedly, I'll come right out and say it, for my personal style of riding, I prefer the Kawasaki slightly, and this kind of lightweight form factor made a little bit more power, was just a little bit more exciting, made it so that if I were using this bike and riding it for many years, I'd last a little bit longer from an excitement standpoint on the Kawasaki. But I totally see why people would get the Honda as well. It's a little bit more tamed down, slightly more advanced suspension, a little bit easier to deal with being at a Honda dealership. Probably going to be more reliable. I mean, I don't think there's any problem with the Kawasaki 500 motors, but this 471cc parallel twin 4-stroke is about as straightforward and reliable as you can get on a motorcycle here in 2026. Well, maybe that's not quite true, but I should say about as simple and straightforward as you get for a modern powertrain. The fact we have fuel injection, the fact we are making pretty decent power, it's still going to be reliable and easy to use for many, many years to come. And since this is the naked form factor of this bike, it's so easy to work on. Look, your oil filter's right there, your oil drain plug's right down there. You could do anything you needed to. You could do exhaust if you really wanted to, fix little bits, maintenance, fixing, anything you need to do is just right here. The plastics are simple and straightforward, easy to source. It's just a motorcycle made for people who occasionally like to get out and ride. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go ride it. But before we do, let me tell you about this sitting right here on the seat of the bike. This is the new Helite, or Helite. I think some people pronounce it Helite. Maybe that's the official way. I like to say Helite. This is the new Helite Double Turtle. Now, I'm somebody who does like to take their risks and their liberties sometimes on two wheels. However, I also do it always wearing a helmet and always wearing an airbag. You can get airbags from a few different manufacturers right now, but what I like about Helite and why I sport their gear over anybody else, and trust me, I do work with Alpine Stars. I have Alpine Stars dirt gear, but I prefer Helite's gear because, to me, and I'm kind of going off of just my impressions having worked with companies, but Helite solely exists to be an airbag and motorcycle protection company. Alpine Stars and a lot of those other brands that make airbags, they're a gear company. They're trying to get you to be in their gear. So yes, I'm not saying they don't want you to be safe, but I'm just saying that a brand like Helite solely exists to make these airbags and to keep you safe on your motorcycle. So this is a new product they have. This is their new, I think what they would consider to be their safest airbag yet. So they had the Turtle, and then they had the Turtle 2. I've had the Turtle 2 for a while, my high-vis and everything. I've also had the H-Move backpack and the leather jacket. But this is the Double Turtle, and it's sporting hard back in the back protection, and then hard in the front as well, and that's what's new. I think that's why they call it the Double Turtle. And then it's still got the whole airbag aspect. So you click it into the bike here, or you can get an electronic trigger version as well. And then if I were to have an accident, get ejected from the bike, it would inflate protect my head, neck, and vital areas. You know, I'm going to be doing a dedicated video on this one at some point, and I'll do another inflation clip, but I'll show you the inflation clip here from the Turtle 2 that we've had for a number of years now. There it is.
Wow.
That's tight. My head is, yeah, very, I should have done it with my helmet on, but I can imagine how tight my helmet would be in here. And it's lasting too. So very, very quick, very, very high protection from the airbag. I highly recommend you consider picking one up. You can use the link below. I think I can get you a little bit of a discount. I actually don't even get any sort of affiliate money from selling you guys this. I just personally love wearing their gear, and I want you guys to be safe as well. And I kind of chose to promote it a little bit more in this video because I feel like people riding a Honda CB500F would also be interested in being safe. One zipper and you're good to go. Now, when I first got this motorcycle from Honda, I thought it was a 2026, and I realized where my confusion came from because if you go on Honda's website right now in May of 2026, they show you this bike as a 2026. You can even see the CB500F sticker on it in the build configurator, but it lists it as a 2026, and under the features it says it's got the normal 6-speed transmission and everything like that. It doesn't say anything about the e-clutch or any updates or anything. So I don't know what the deal is between the 2025s and 2026s. From what I can tell, at least according to Honda's main website, the 2026 should be just like this, but this is technically a 2025. But if you watch some of my other videos, I say 26 because I was confused. Honda throws this little parallel twin in a lot of different bikes. You can get the CB500F, you can get the CBR500, you can get the SCL500, and you can get the NX500. We've ridden all of them except for the CBR, and it's a very easy bike to ride. Very easy motor, a little gruntiness. I actually think I like it best in the SCL. Really fits that little scrambler format, but it works pretty well in this naked as well. Slipper and assist clutch, which means as I come to stops and negotiate aspects like this parking lot, very, very light to pull in the clutch. And if I'm a little bit more of a novice rider and I'm not very good at rev match downshifting, say I go from second right here down to first and let out the clutch, the clutch kind of meshes itself nice and smooth together so it doesn't disrupt the rear wheel. But even if I were to disrupt the rear wheel, I have traction control and I have ABS. And I think that's fantastic because anti-lock brakes are one of the smartest things you can have on a motorcycle here in 2026. And again, some of those insufferable sort of commenters that I talked about at the beginning of the video will like to chime into certain videos and go, oh, I don't want ABS on my bike. I can stop a lot faster not using that. It just adds weight and complexity, and you're better off just knowing how to brake your bike properly. Yes, if you're on a racetrack, if you're in a perfect controlled environment, if you're dialed in and you're covering the brake, ready for a situation, you can technically preload and then threshold brake and stop faster without ABS than by just grabbing a fistful of brake on an ABS bike. However, emergency situations don't happen when you're planning. That's why they're called emergencies. You're riding along, you're looking away at something, or you're paying attention to the traffic situation, and then all of a sudden, so a car turns out in front of you, and you got to grab as much brake as possible. And maybe you don't do a perfect balance of your rear and your front, and maybe you don't, wait until you're straightened up right here before hitting the brakes. That is where ABS comes in and makes riding so much safer. It handles more of the unknown. So I love that Honda's just given us the CB500F as an ABS model now. It works great. In fact, I'll come up to an acceleration up here and then I'll slam on the brakes and I'll show you ABS in action. $50 miles per hour and brake. Oh yeah. Oh, was that not fast enough for you right there? I mean, that still stopped pretty quickly, and all I had to do was grab the brake levers as hard as I could. The ergonomics also make this a particularly easy motorcycle to ride. I'm sitting nice and upright, in fact, more so than on the Z500 even. It's just a very good posture sort of machine. Sitting up, looking forward, looking around. Seeing into people's cars. It does make it so that at highway speeds, you're getting pushed back a little bit on the bike, especially myself. I'm 5'10", 32-inch inseam, 170 pounds. Standing here at a stop, I can stand up and flat foot the bike, no problem, both feet. Got plenty of room there. But when I do get up above 60 miles per hour or so, the wind starts to push me back a little bit. And for those of you who are a little bit more experienced riders, you'll know oftentimes you like to have a little bit of wind pushing you so that it kind of gets you into a neutral riding position. Well, this bike is neutral when you're stopped, which means it's a little bit of a too far positive riding position when you're cruising at highway speeds. But like I said, for slower speed riding, city type riding like we're doing here today, sitting at lights, it's very nice, easy, comfortable, good wide seat, supports my butt nicely. Tapered fuel tank. Again, just they've really dialed in the ergos on this bike over many years. And that's something nice about buying a Honda in a situation like this. I mean, there are absolutely other motorcycles that will be less expensive than this and they'll do similar sort of riding, but you've got Honda engineering on your side for this bike, which means you've got decades and decades and decades of them trying to make the easiest, most approachable and well-engineered motorcycles on the planet baked right into here. I mean, this is their bread and butter sort of bike. They're going to sell a ton of these. They have sold a ton of these. You're not going to have any surprises. Some people like surprises when they're out riding, but other people don't. And that's what this bike is for. The tech suite is quite rudimentary, although this is pretty similar system that you get even on Honda's more expensive bikes. It's a basic TFT display that even here in full bright sunlight in Southern California, I can see just fine. You can change the back lighting to give you a white background or gray as opposed to this black, but I think the black looks best, especially with the black paint. Gives you a tachometer. Again, you can sort of change out how that looks, but right now it's simply telling me what my revs go to. It's giving me digital speed. Importantly, it's giving me my gear that I am in. I think that's very nice to have on any sort of motorcycle, but especially if you're more of a beginner, it allows you to pay attention to one less thing as you're riding. When you're a more novice rider, really any rider, but especially more novice, you really want to be focusing all you can on the traffic situation, the riding situation. I'm looking right now, okay, red light, I'm keeping an idea of, all right, making sure that Macan isn't going to merge over. I'm kind of thinking, all right, what lane do I want to be in? Who's around me? Coming down. If I'm a newer rider, I might be thinking about all those things and have forgotten, oh, I don't know what gear I'm in. So then you're kind of mashing down and you're hitting the shifter and everything. You're going, I don't know where I'm at. One more thing to distract you. However, on this bike, I was able to just quick peek down and say, oh, I'm in third gear, which means click, click, 2 gears. Now I'm in first for this stoplight, ready to go. Acceleration test. Hitting 60, top of third gear there. It's fine. It's just quick enough to be exciting when it's just a lighter weight rider on here. I will say the red line is too low for my preference. And I should say the fuel cut is too low as well. I often find myself ringing this bike out and then running into the fuel cut because I just was expecting to have more revs that I simply don't have. So that's a bit of a frustration, especially when you're on a sportier little bike like this. You kind of like being able to ring it out, but this is not much of a ring it out sort of motor. This has got a little bit of grunt to it. It's okay being down in lower revs. But the technology is not giving you anything too special. I'm pretty sure you can pair your phone via Bluetooth and maybe switch through some tracks or something. I personally just wear a Cardo headset and switch through my tracks that way. I also use a smartwatch if I need to be able to see if I get a text message or something like that. But in general, I just like to ride. I like to be distraction free as I'm riding. So those kind of screens that you can get texts on and change your music and everything, it's not a huge pro or con in my book personally. Interestingly though, when I was younger and I was kind of in the market for a bike like this, it was a big thing. I was looking at the KTM Duke 390 and the fact that it had the Bluetooth in there and everything. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I like that. But now being a more experienced rider, I don't know. I don't find it that helpful or useful. That's fine. Because we don't have to wring the bike out all that much, so it does mean that cruising down here closer to 4,000 RPM, very comfortable for the bike. You don't feel much in terms of vibration. There's enough grunt where if I wanted to get up in front of this Tesla, I can stay in 5th gear, still twist the throttle and get healthy acceleration. Also, we don't have a windshield on here, which pros and cons. Pro, I get clean, unbroken air hitting me, which means my helmet is actually not that loud. I'm wearing the Arai Contour X. It's a fairly quiet, modern, high-end helmet, and it means that I'm getting all this fresh, clean air. It's really not too loud on me. The downside is I'm getting a lot of air on me. So if, again, I go on highway speeds or even faster, I'm really getting pushed back. I'm having to fight with my neck and my torso in order to stay upright. Now, if you live somewhere, maybe we're often riding in the hot heat, you might really appreciate all that extra airflow. But for me, I do like having at least a little bit of wind protection. Showa suspension, that means that we are able to take kind of regular road imperfections like this. Pretty darn nice. It doesn't feel like a cheap, flinty sort of ride. It's confident, it's stable, it's planted. The suspension fits the rest of the motorcycle in terms of just a very easy, straightforward, proper feeling tune. Just a minimal adjustment back there. Can pretty much just adjust preload in the rear for how heavy are you, essentially. Something the tech does not have, though, which is just a small bit frustrating, is any sort of coolant indicator. I like to be able to see that my engine's at least getting up to temp before I get on the bike a little bit more. When I'm riding this, I essentially just give it 5 minutes or so of normal riding before I really wring it out. Here we are up at highway speeds. So again, you kind of have to scoot your butt back, scoot your chest in, and let the air kind of hold you. But other than that, vibrations are minimal, especially for this type of engine, I should say. You feel them, but it's not bad. Just a lot of wind, and if you're somebody who likes to get up toward triple digits, this bike's going to have a little bit of trouble doing that, so just keep that in mind. Quick gear check here. Aside from the Helite double turtle airbag vest and my Arai Contour X, I am donned in Revit gear. This is kind of my daily usability, ride any sort of motorcycle outfit. So I've got the Boundless boots. I've got the Ortez jeans, kind of nice dark wash here with a little bit of padding. I've got the off-track jacket here. Now I kind of liked the brighter off-track jacket, but I chose the black because I just wanted it to look a little better. Now, I'm not a huge appearance sort of guy, but I wanted it to look good on any sort of bike that I was riding, not be weird. And then I've got the dirt gloves. And I specifically asked for these gloves because I wanted a glove that would have a hard part in the palm, which means that if I were to fall and slide on the asphalt, my hands are going to push rather than crank over and break a wrist. So I've been really happy with this gear. It allows me to be comfortable and safe in all sorts of different riding environments. So if you need some gear for yourself, I highly recommend picking up some Revit gear. Check the link below if you want to see everything that I am wearing, and get yourself some of your own. Alright, so who is the CB500F for? It's interesting because Honda makes it a bit tougher on themselves by having so many bikes in this class. Because if you're somebody who came up to me and said, hey, I really want a simple, affordable, reliable motorcycle that I'm going to ride daily, I'd probably push you toward the NX500 over this, because it's got a little bit of extra wind protection, a little bit more comfortable. It'll allow you to have a little bit more general riding use. And then if you said all of those things, but a little bit less for daily riding, I kind of want to look cool, then I would push you toward either the CBR500 or the SCL 500. Those both kind of have a little bit more fun style to them. And then if you're somebody who, oh, I totally forgot earlier, the Rebel is also one using this powertrain and kind of looks cool doing it. So I'd push you toward one of those. But what if you just wanted one of those simple, affordable, reliable motorcycles and you don't care so much about what you're riding, you care more about the ride. And you don't ride for long periods of time, you don't ride super aggressively, you just like being out on two wheels when you have the opportunity. That is where the CB500F shines. That's why you get something like this. In fact, my wife and I took a honeymoon to Switzerland after we got married, and our return flight home got canceled, so we had to rebook for a flight a day later. We had an extra day in Switzerland. So I reached out and I found somebody who rented out motorcycles because we were right near the Swiss Alps, and I was like, you know what I'd like to do is I'd like to ride a motorcycle through the Swiss Alps. And they had a few different bikes. One of the more affordable options was a Honda CB500F. It was in this cool lime green color. It was a little bit of an older model. So I booked it, and Alyssa and I had an amazing, unforgettable ride through the Swiss Alps on this little Honda CB500. It got good fuel economy. It had just enough power. Again, we weren't wearing all the proper gear because it was a vacation. We weren't planning on motorcycling, so we essentially just had helmets and gloves, and then everything else was sort of standard daily gear. And then, so I didn't want to push it really hard or anything. We're overseas or on our honeymoon, but the CB500F worked so well as a bike that was more about the experience and less about the machine. That's what this bike does so well. So again, if you're somebody who likes Hondas for whatever reason, and you just want a motorcycle that's going to be simple, easy to purchase, ride, own, everything, this is it. This is the CB500F. And it's gotten less expensive starting here in 2026. So I think this one for 2025 model was listed up towards 70, low sevens after destination, but now for 2026 it's about $6,500. So honestly, not too bad here for a modern motorcycle in terms of cost. It's easy to ride, easy to own, easy to maintain, easy, easy, easy. And then Honda also has the CB650. What I appreciate about Honda is that that's an entirely different motorcycle. That's got an inline 4. It's much more expensive. It's going to ride like a completely different bike. Whereas if you look at Kawasaki, they have the Z500 and the Z650. Very, very similar motorcycles. The 650 is just a little bit heavier, makes a little bit more power. So I appreciate that the CB500F is an entirely different sort of ride and experience from the CB650. Very easy to get this if you're a little bit more simple, don't care so much about an exciting powertrain. Get the CB650 if you really want to enjoy an inline 4. So thank you all so much for watching. Hope this helps you if you're interested in a bike like this. You really can't go wrong, but there are certainly more exciting and more purpose-built options for you out there on the market. If you do want to see more on it, check the link below for our comparison and our daily rider fuel economy test. We'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from DM Moto, and as always, ride on.